Imagine for a second you're grieving a loved one, you're tasked with settling their estate, and suddenly you hit a massive wall of paperwork. You urgently need a death certificate to close bank accounts or access family records, but you have no idea where to start. It's a huge problem so many of us face. Welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving into the complex red tape of state bureaucracy, from those vital final records to, believe it or not, casting your ballot. Understanding this process accurately is absolutely crucial for your family's legal standing, so let's get right into it.
So how exactly do you navigate all this? How do you secure restricted vital records when someone passes away? Or, on the flip side, cast a ballot without a permanent address? I know, they seem like totally unrelated topics, but they both boil down to these critical moments where the state requires you to definitively prove who you are, where you belong, and what you're legally entitled to.
Here is our roadmap for today. We'll be looking at 1. Civic life and state bureaucracy. 2. Voting without a permanent home. 3. Essential voter registration timelines. 4. Navigating state vital records. 5. Proving identity and entitlement. And finally, 6. Fees, timelines, and legalities.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, Civic Life and State Bureaucracy. Basically, how the state handles your paperwork from your first vote all the way to your final records.
Moving right into Section 2, Voting without a permanent home. This is a really fascinating area of the law. There's this huge misconception that if you don't have a permanent physical house, you just lose your constitutional right to vote. Absolutely not true. The law actually recognizes this unseen electorate. Your presence in a community goes way beyond just a residential street address. But jumping through the actual administrative hoops to prove that residency, well, that depends entirely on where you live.
Take Alabama and Alaska, for instance. It's literally like night and day. In Alabama, the law dictates you've got to be registered in your specific county. If you move across a county line, you have to start the whole registration process completely over. But up in Alaska, because of all those vast unaddressed territories, you can register the moment you arrive with just an intent to remain and a rural community name. No traditional street address required at all.
Which brings us to Section 3, Essential Voter Registration Timelines. Knowing exactly when to act is everything here. Missing a deadline by a single day can literally cost you your voice. Look at Alabama's 2020 election timeline. It was completely unforgiving. October 19th was the absolute final cutoff to get registered. Wanted an absentee ballot? You had to request it by October 29th. If you were mailing it in, it had to be postmarked by November 2nd and physically received by noon on Election Day, November 3rd. It is an incredibly tight window.
And if you happen to have a criminal record in Alabama, navigating this gets even more complicated. A conviction for treason or impeachment, that's a permanent loss of the vote. Crimes of moral turpitude, like murder or sexual abuse, require a formal pardon. But for other felonies, once your sentence and fines are totally finished, you can apply for a certificate of eligibility. The catch? You have to do it at least 60 days before the election. Oh, and strangely enough, if you're currently incarcerated for a non-disqualifying felony, you can still just request an absentee ballot from the warden. You really have to know the specific rules.
Okay, on to Section 4, Navigating State Vital Records. Now we transition from voting to the absolute end-of-life administration.
Remember that scenario we talked about at the very beginning? Settling an estate? To do that, you need an official death certificate, which is the legal proof of passing. Let's look closely at Iowa for a perfect example of how complex securing one can be. Iowa has actually changed how they manage vital records over the last 140 years. Because of that, finding a certificate heavily depends on what year the death occurred. Records all the way back to 1880 are sitting at the county recorder, but anything from 1954 to now is completely electronic across the whole state.
It is a rapid process from the start. Iowa law actually requires a funeral director and a medical professional to legally register a death within just 3 days of it happening. And here's a quick but important detail. Iowa can only issue a certificate if the person actually passed away inside state lines. If an Iowa resident passes away in another state, you cannot get their paperwork from Iowa.
Section 5, Proving Identity and Entitlement. You can't just walk up and ask for these documents.
The state doesn't hand these out to just anyone because they are highly sensitive legal documents. In fact, in Iowa, these death records are heavily restricted from the general public for exactly 50 years, half a century. This restriction is strictly designed to protect the deceased's privacy and keep unauthorized folks away from personal, medical, and legal details.
So who is actually eligible to break through that 50-year restriction? Well, you have to formally prove your entitlement.
You need to be 18 or older, and you must be an immediate family member, a spouse, child, parent, grandparent, or sibling. A designated legal representative can also apply. But if you don't fit perfectly into one of those exact categories, the state is going to flat out deny your request. No exceptions.
Okay, so how do you actually apply and avoid the common obstacles? There are strict steps you have to follow, whether you're in Iowa or requesting records in Missouri. Step 1, you need the deceased's full info: name, date, place of death, and crucially their parents' full names prior to marriage. Step 2, clearly state your relationship and why you need the document. Step 3, you absolutely must provide a clear copy of a government-issued picture ID, like a driver's license. And Step 4, this is the challenge that always trips people up, if you apply by mail in Iowa, your signature on the application form literally has to be notarized to prove you are who you say you are.
And finally, Section 6, Fees, Timelines, and Legalities. Let's break down the actual costs and how long you'll be waiting.
You have a few options for paying and applying here, and honestly, paying a little extra can save you weeks of waiting. If you mail it to the State Department in Des Moines, it's just a $15 base cost, but you are looking at a 4 to 6 week wait. You could try the county recorder for $20, though their timelines vary. Need to expedite the process? Iowa uses an approved third party called VitalCheck for online and phone orders. It's the $15 base plus a $14 service fee, but you can actually have the document in your hands in just 2 to 5 business days.
Now, once you have it, how do you use and maintain it? The state takes this incredibly seriously. An uncertified copy just won't cut it. The state explicitly says that uncertified copies given out for things like medical examiner investigations are for administrative purposes only and literally have to be destroyed when the case closes. You absolutely cannot use an uncertified copy to settle a will, claim a pension, or close a bank account. You need the official certified copy for all of that legal heavy lifting. So please store it somewhere safe.
Before we wrap up, a quick but important reminder. Everything we've covered in this explainer is for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional legal advice. I highly encourage you to consult with a professional for specific legal guidance tailored to your unique situation. We've seen just how intense state bureaucracy can be, from voter registration deadlines to jumping through hoops for a death certificate. Thanks for joining me on this explainer today. I'll leave you with this one question to think about. Knowing all the strict timelines and red tape involved, are your own personal records in order for when life demands it?